Hey there, winos. This is Certified Sommelier VINCE.WINE. Today I am super excited to bring you winos one of my favorite French wine producers, and quite honestly one of the world's favorite French wine producers. I've got Guigal, Cotes du Rhone Red, and Cotes du Rhone White. Let's pop the cork on these bad boys and get into a little bit of the region and this producer, and then we'll try these awesome wines on today's Uncorked. Hey, thanks for joining me. And before we get started today, if you want to be a winoceros, hit subscribe on this channel to become a wino today. I'll put out new videos every single Saturday, so be sure to hit that bell icon to stay notified for more great wine content. So before I can even talk to you about Guigal, I have to talk to you winos about the Rhône region. Let's get a look at the map. So the Rhône sort of sits in this almost like funnel looking shape here. You've got the northern Rhône region in the middle of France, and it goes down into that southern Rhône. Now, the northern area really focuses on specifically Syrah. It is 100% Syrah in their red wines. And for their whites, they're mostly focused on Viognier, Roussanne, and Marsanne. Now, the northern Rhône covers these really popular regions, including Côte Rôtie, and that is where Guigal's estate, their mansion, their winery lives in that area. Now, get a look at this really gorgeous estate. It is so beautiful here. This is a Guigal family maison that really is a prime example of it's sort of what I think of when I think of the Rhône region. It's characterized by these really gorgeous, steep hills, and that's so important in winemaking to have such steep hills like that, because you end up with longer amounts of sunlight, or the sunlight hits the vineyard for a much larger part of the day as opposed to being on flatland. That's also like why the hills of Tuscany and Napa are so coveted, right? So these big slopes with vineyards that are really dangerous even to harvest are really beautiful. The Guigal family actually has only been making wine, believe it or not, for the past 3 generations. It starts with what you see right here on the bottle, E. Guigal. That actually stands for Etienne, who was the founder of this winery. Now, this guy is really a trip, Etienne, because what he did was he was an apricot farmer. This was an apricot vineyard, and he looked off in the distance and said to himself, what is all that stuff that I see planted out there on these really steep slopes? And his brother said, don't pay attention to that stuff. That's just vines. That's just wine grapes, right? It had not been taken care of. It had not been harvested, but yet plantings even in that area had been around, or at least the soil had been farmed since like the Roman ages. So we're talking like 2,000-year-old areas of wine development. Again, those vines were certainly not that old. But Etienne said to himself, I'm gonna buy those vines one day. And there was even that really big mansion that you see. He said to himself, I'm gonna buy that mansion one day. And that is exactly what he did, a self-made man. And this is basically the current owner's grandfather. So it only goes into 3 generations. And beyond all of that, the amazing thing here, not only is that he's a self-made man, but that the Guigal winery has become such an important winery in France. It's so incredible, that story, how the Guigal family went from absolutely nothing apricot farmers to one of the most premium and important wineries in the Rhône of France and in all of France in general. So cut to today, 3 generations later, and the grandchildren of Etienne are still running that winery, and they have expanded their operations even into the southern Rhône. So they're strictly Rhône, but beyond the Côte Rôtie vineyards that they do, they also do the rest of the Rhône region, including Hermitage and Crozes Hermitage and Saint-Joseph, all 3 very distinct AOCs, or appellations, basically a wine growing region for the Syrah varietal. Syrah is so important in the Rhône. So back to our map. Y'all are gonna learn something today. Now we're moving down to the southern Rhône region, and this is a region where you can finally do blends. Now, while Syrah is still a very important and arguably the most important varietal of the southern Rhône, you're now playing with Grenache and Mourvedre. So if you've seen those GSM wines before, if you're familiar with those, this is the original GSM area. The Paso Robles region in California is really famous for their GSMs right now, but that is Grenache, Syrah, and Mourvedre, right? So those three varietals are really well played within the Southern Rhone and first really experimented with there, and they find their best iterations in the region called Chateauneuf-du-Pape, and that is just such a fun one to say, it just rolls off the tongue. Chateauneuf-du-Pape. I always feel like really fancy when I say that. But Chateauneuf-du-Pape, no joke, is a super high-end region named for the Pope and is some of the best GSM wine you will ever taste. Now there are a couple other red varietals that can be played with in the Southern Rhone region, and then for whites I think there's like 12 or 13 white varietals that can be played with, and I won't cover those here since Guigal doesn't really mess with those. With Gigondas and Vauqueyras being two of the other really important regions in the Southern Rhone, and of course Guigal makes wines from there as well. So now that we've had our little crash course in the Rhone region, let's go ahead and pop these corks. So we will follow some good etiquette here and start with our white wine first. Super, super cool. I love that you can actually see the entire chateau on there, and then the E for Etienne, Guigal, on the cork. Really cool, and natural cork here as well. Oh, that little Ampius, I don't know exactly how to say that. That is the little town where Etienne saw that vineyard. That's where the chateau is. So just getting a closer look at the bottle, you can see the really cool Guigal emblem there, producer name there as well, and you will find it on the neck of the bottle as well, along with our vintage 2018 vintage here. And this is just such a cool label, and what I love about that is the Rhone River right there, and that's exactly what the region looks like. And right here, this chateau, that is the Maison, that is the Guigal mansion. It is right there on that river. Super, super cool, and you can see how steep those slopes are. I just love the look of that bottle, and here it says it is bottled on the property. So really, really cool stuff. Let's go ahead and get into the wine. Awesome, so let's just get this in the glass here. So in this glass, you know that you've got either a Viognier, Marsanne, Roussanne kind of blend. I believe, maybe it does just say Cotes du Rhone, so I think that's the overarching appellation AOC for the Rhone region. So this actually could be a number of different things. It is their white blend. I was not going to buy the Condrieu. So the Condrieu, that is the AOC for 100% Viognier. I think maybe a little Marsanne, Roussanne is allowed in there. That starts like at $50. So I definitely settled on their Cotes du Rhone. You know, the less specific it is, the less expensive it is. So this was about the $12 price range, and that's the thing. When you've got a producer like Guigal who cares so much about their winemaking, you know that at any price range, they're gonna offer you a fantastic product. So let's go ahead and just take a look at this really gorgeous, bright lemon color in the glass, and let's get it on the nose, which, by the way, I should say, I have been able to smell this thing since I popped the cork. It is super fragrant and aromatic. This has a huge nose, I can tell already. Oh yeah, so there is a saying in my house, definitely French. It just has some of that old world sort of minerality to it. That's like one of the first things I get there. And certainly some Viognier in this, a little bit of orange blossom happening on that nose as well. Little lemon, and some other citrus fruits. A lot of good citrus in there. And a little bit of peach. It's a little peachy, little apricot, and spice. And I can tell something wants to be almost like salty. Let's get it on the palate. Oh my gosh, okay. This enters onto the palate with really good oiliness. It is rich and sort of oily all over the palate, and then finishes with what I call that sort of salty minerality, gives it a kiss of like crispness as well. Yeah, so it's sort of like zesty, which is just really, really nice. And then yeah, sort of all that like lemon fruit in there as well. This just drinks really, really gorgeously. It is refreshing, but it is depth, there is terroir in this, that gorgeous sense of place. It speaks of the Rhone Valley as you drink it. It is really quite a delight. Oh, the word that I'm looking for is complexity. It is very complex. It is not giving you everything right up front. There is that gorgeous minerality, earthiness, fruitiness, and varying sensation on the palate and mouthfeel that makes this such a treat. Okay, so in the same vein, we are going to stick with the Cotes du Rhone for the Guigal Red, because I don't want to spend $300 or $400 on their top end stuff. Yeah, no joke. Guigal focuses on 3 estate vineyards. I can't remember the name of all of them. La Lalande, I remember, is one of them. La Moulin is another one, and there is a third one. Go check out their website, but I don't really care to memorize them because I'm never gonna spend $300 or $400 or $500 on any of their vintages. But if you do check out their website and see what they have available, these wines are such classic Guigal wines that they have a little vintage chart that tells you when to drink 2015, when to drink 2013, all the way down to their 90s. And it just gives you how the wines are tasting now, when you should open them, and the tasting notes when they were bottled. Really quite incredible. And of course, the better the vintage and the older the vintage, that's gonna drive that price. But I'm sticking in the $12 price range today. And don't get me wrong, I would totally buy the $300 or $400 price range one, just not for this show. Cool, so again, being in Cotes du Rhone here, this is certainly going to be the overarching AOC and can include a number of different varietals. I imagine it is going to be Syrah-led, as it is the Rhone still, but it could be a varying number of varietals, including Mourvèdre and Grenache. Okay, in the glass, this guy is really pretty. It's actually very clear as well, and a really gorgeous, just ruby red. That's the thing about old world Syrah. It's not gonna be like your California or Shiraz style Syrahs. It's going to be less of that big, jammy, blueberry, dark fruit with all that sort of smoke and barbecue flavors on it, and instead it's gonna be slightly more elegant. No, quite the contrary. French Syrah is much lighter in style. It's both a lighter in coloration, again, instead of that inky, jammy style, it's going to be this really soft, ruby red coloration. And instead of those deep, smoky flavors, it leaves you with maybe a gentle black pepper spiciness, and instead of jam and blueberry fruit, you're going to get more of this really gorgeous sort of blackberry, maybe raspberry on there as well. And all of this is driven by climate. That warm climate produces those big, heavy, smoky, jammy flavors, super thick skins, whereas this cool climate French Old World Syrah is going to give you those softer, lighter, more delicate, terroir-driven, complex flavors. And I shouldn't, both regions will give you complexity, but just a different style with Old World. On the nose. Oh yeah, this is once again that just gentle, fragrant nose on it. This definitely speaks of some blackberry and a little bit of raspberry, but it's not crazy loud. And then I'm getting some stony earthiness on here as well. Just a hint of maybe like some black olive as well. And not too much more than that. I would say this is almost maybe a little less complex than its white counterpart. Oh, and there it is. I am getting just a little bit of gaminess. That's the other thing that can happen. Instead of like that smoke barbecue, a little gaminess can come right out of that glass, and that's what I'm getting. Yeah, it's a little like sweaty, if you will. Pretty interesting. Let's get it on the palate. Oh yeah, you know what? There is such a savoriness on this finish. That's the new characteristic that I pick up. Certainly I confirm that black olive for sure. And now I'm getting a little bit of like black pepper on that finish. Really, really gorgeous. And look at that viscosity on there too. You can see those really gorgeous legs. Now, Old World wines are going to be in a much lower ABV. It's going to be more like 11, 12, 13% alcohol, maybe 14 at the highest, but you typically don't see it the way you would like in California, where it'd be like 15, 16, 17% alcohol, especially for Syrah. But it's definitely a medium entry on the palate, kind of medium to full body, and it's actually got some nice acidity, making this a fantastic food wine. I would love this with some grilled sausages, I think, some gamey cuts of food, maybe boar or something like that as well. Think gamey foods, antelope, that kind of thing. The tannin structure is actually fairly gentle on this. It is not like a ripping my gums out. It's got a proper dry finish and some good spice on there with all that sort of dried condition of blackberry and raspberry fruit. This is really a lovely and classic Rhône French Syrah. Well, there you have it, winos. I just really was excited to share with you a wine that I knew that I was gonna love. This is such a celebrated producer. Guigal is just a really talented family of winemakers from such a classic French region. Do yourself a favor, winos. Go check out their website, go check out your local purveyor of wine, and get yourself some Guigal and taste yourself a little bit of history, because that's exactly what you find in this bottle. It is French terroir and French history and French wine just done so well. If you enjoyed what you saw here today, please leave me a like. That helps so much. Don't forget to share this video with your wine friends. And until next time, winos, drink safe and drink well. Cheers.